Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to episode 67 of the Nindie Nation podcast. I'm Jeff, and if this is your first time joining us, welcome. Nindie Nation is your one-stop shop for everything independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. Each week, we take a quick look at every new indie game hitting the eShop, and then in our second half, we'll scour Nintendo's digital storefront and find the week's best deals so that you can stretch your digital dollar further and keep your Joy-Cons synced. Nindie Nation is brought to you by our friends at the Nintendo Village, your source for everything Nintendo. New episodes post to podcast feeds every Sunday evening, and on Monday, you can find a video version on the Nindie Nation YouTube channel, complete with footage of every game we cover. For up-to-the-minute deals and general indie game shenanigans, find us on Twitter at Nindie Nation and let us know what titles you're picking up. This week, we're covering releases and deals for May 30th through June 5th, but we'll get to those in a minute because each week, a few indies sneak out onto the eShop without as much as a whimper, and we don't want to let those slip away into the night, or do we? Let's find out by kicking things off with the 5 neglected Nindies we missed since episode 66. East Asia Soft has been loading up the eShop these past couple months, and the flood continues with Many Faces, a single-screen retro arcade shooter filled to the brim with 8-bit nostalgia for $3.99. Cubite Interactive released Ant Gravity Tiny's Adventure, which is a traditional side-scrolling platformer about an ant who can manipulate gravity for 49 cents. You see what they did there? Ant, gravity, like anti-gravity, but it's an ant who can control gravity? Ratalaika dropped Castle Pals, a pixel platformer developed by Brad Urkala for $4 that sees a pair of protagonists making their way through a castle where the boy can fly over obstacles and the girl can fight enemies. And then we wrap up the neglected Nindies for this week by taking the standards bar and just slamming it down through the floor with 2 festering turds. The first of which is from good old Sabek, who released Snakes and Ladders. If your Nindie Nation bingo card has Sabek charges way too much for an atrocious ripoff of an existing IP in the hopes of fooling unsuspecting Switch owners into wasting $10 on Chutes and Ladders, but, well then you're off to a great start. Nindie Nation bingo card, huh? If someone makes one and sends it to me on Twitter at Nindie Nation, I might have to throw a code for a random Nindie your way. I'd love to see that. But we're not done yet because BALTORO Games tripped and fell, dropping Food Truck Tycoon Asian Cuisine onto the eShop for $3.49. And I kid you not, it's the same old food truck mobile game, except you play as a horribly stereotyped Asian cook who serves food to white people who constantly get mad at him. Really. We sure kicked off the week with a great way to save some money, at least. Those first 3 look serviceable if you like what you see, but I think we should head on over to the new releases if you've got some money burning a hole through your digital pockets. Let's take a look at the new Nindie releases on the eShop for the week of May 30th through June the 5th. On May 30th, we see Despotism 3K, which is without a doubt one of the strangest games we've ever covered on Nindie Nation, and that's saying something. A dark, pixelated game for $11 by Gameplay First, Despotism 3K has you running a factory as an AI who is building humans. From the outset, if you like these type of resource simulation games similar to, Fallout Shelter, this could be up your alley. You manage multiple machines and randomized scenarios to, just keep making humans as quickly and efficiently as possible, alongside a dramatic plot soaked in dark humor. Definitely a title you need to see in action, but it seems like a mesmerizing entry into the easy-to-learn, hard-to-master type of management simulation that absolutely takes an approach we've rarely, if ever, seen before. Ultimate Games is releasing Undead and Beyond by Ominous Entertainment, also for $10.99. And this one is also a unique entry, but within a genre currently flooding the eShop. That's right, Undead and Beyond appears to be a top-down twin-stick shooter, but playing as Dr. Beyond, you don't focus as much on doing the attacking yourself as you do finding dead enemies to reanimate into zombies who will do the fighting for you. It's a neat take that breathes some new life, no pun intended, into a genre that's already so overcrowded. Ultimate Games actually has a release I'm interested in playing this week. Huh, who knew? And here's to releasing a title so difficult to pronounce or search for online, Jorge Biedma Azuar is probably already setting himself up for disappointing sales when he releases hashtag Woman Up Super Puzzles Dream on May 30th for $6.19. Now, I could go into more detail here, but it's a jigsaw puzzle collection focused on female characters, and if that's what you're looking for, I will always recommend Puzzle Book first. And that's your Nindies for May 2020. Hard to believe we're already into June, but here we are, and we've still got a bunch of games to talk about. A Nindie newcomer is getting June started on a lighthearted foot when Alawar Premium brings their quote-unquote indie simulation strategy game called Don't Feed the Monkeys to the Switch for $10.39. This one's also hard to explain, but it's built as one of those games where you're watching a bunch of cameras and using that information to interact with the world around you. Except in Don't Feed the Monkeys, you are observing, you guessed it, monkeys in captivity. Pete is going to love this one, I'm sure. I see some narrative outside of just staring at the screens, and a bunch of point-and-click storytelling as well. Even though their write-up is hilarious with lines such as, "Yep, we put a PC in your game that's on your Nintendo Switch so that you can work on a PC while you're playing the game that's on your Nintendo Switch." It's admittedly hard to tell what the goal is in this game just by looking at it. There's a demo though, so if you're interested in spying on caged monkeys, or you're in the mood for what looks to be a pretty funny point-and-click adventure, go download the demo, but just remember, don't feed the monkeys. On June 2nd, fans of graphic novels or film noir stories have a lot to be excited for with Liberated by way of Walkabout Games and Atomic Wolf. This is a graphic novel come to life with adventure, shooting, platforming, narrative, and just about all kinds of gameplay elements rolled into a black and white, rain-soaked world where you're part of a revolution near its tipping point, and this game looks really cool. It's received critical acclaim in the preview cycle and was a part of past Indie World presentations too. Not only that, but it launches this week with a 20% discount for $15.99, and for all of those reasons in one, Liberated earns this week's Nindie Nation Pick of the Week. Awesome P 2 is obviously the sequel to the charming as heck Awesome P by Sometimes You, and it's just a treat to play. The sequel carries on the original Game Boy-style puke green color palette as you follow a little pea on an adventure. It's a note-for-note 2D platformer, but everything it does very well, and the sequel launches on June 3rd with a discount for only $3.99. Awesome P2 also has a demo, so go check it out. The original was a great little game to play over a weekend, and I'd expect the same from the sequel. And getting things started with the big Thursday drop on June 4th is the Takeover for $17.99, and it is, well, it's Streets of Rage, like almost exactly. I'd love to tell you what developer and publisher Antonios Pelikanos has added to this game to make it stand out against the immaculate Streets of Rage 4, but there's no trailer available, and the entire description is only one sentence. In a world where River City Girls and Streets of Rage 4 didn't exist, maybe I'd recommend the Takeover, but with so little to go on and two genre-defining entries already available at the same price, we're gonna have to know a little bit more about the Takeover and see some reviews before providing the Nindie Nation recommendation. You know what I can't get enough of? Turn-based tactical RPGs. While we have the creme de la creme with Into the Breach, and on the AAA side we're getting XCOM 2 next week, there really aren't a ton of other noteworthy games where you can just plan out and execute a strategy on a grid. It's for that reason, and the fact that it looks pretty solid, that I'm excited to see Depth of Extinction by HOF Studios make its way to the eShop on June 4th for $13.49. The game takes place in a flooded underground world with an alien threat where you'll use over 100 weapons to battle enemies from 5 various factions. It's almost a Nindie trifecta as it uses roguelike elements and light RPG mechanics, but these levels are handcrafted rather than procedurally generated, and honestly, that's probably for the best with this genre. Depth of Extinction is a welcome addition to the eShop, and fans of turn-based strategy RPGs will probably find a lot to like here. The next day, on June 5th, you'll get a chance to explore yet another desolate underwater world when developer Julian Laufer and publisher Head Up Games bring their $17 retro exploration platformer Outbuddies DX to the Switch. This title bears an art style similar to any other 8 or 16-bit platformer, but it uses a lot of blacks and neon colors to give it a flair reminiscent of games from the ZX Spectrum, and I love that style. It's a bit hard to tell how much of a Metroidvania this one is, but the maps, weapons, and general mechanics I can see make it look like an open-ended action-adventure that stands out because of the visual style. $17 might be a bit too much for this one, but that's just my own hunch. Either way, I'd say put Outbuddies DX on your wish list if, like me, you're always down for another Metroidvania, and especially if you dig this type of art style. Definitely one I'm gonna revisit here on Nindie Nation next time it goes on sale. If you've played it, let me know on Twitter @Nindie Nation. It's kind of weird to see The Outer Worlds on all of the best indies of 2019 lists, but sure enough, even with a $60 price tag, this first-person Western RPG developed by Obsidian and Private Division is indeed a Nindie. Obsidian was recently acquired by Microsoft, so we won't be covering their inevitable sequel, but The Outer Worlds is definitely worth considering. I played and completed this game in its entirety last year and absolutely adored it. Obsidian developed Fallout New Vegas, and if you're a fan of any of the Fallout or Elder Scrolls games, that's exactly what this is, but with a lot more open-ended gameplay where you can blast your way through the humorous story of corporate greed, or talk your way out of every single encounter depending on how you develop your character. The Outer Worlds is one of the best literal interpretations of a role-playing game I've ever seen because every player can really make the game his or her own. The bright, vivid color palette makes the game stand out, and the serious yet light-hearted tone tells a great story without ever taking itself too seriously. And there's a near infinite amount of replay value here. So why isn't The Outer Worlds our Nindie Nation pick of the week? Well, because I played this game on the Xbox One X, and even there, noticed multiple technical issues, including frame rate drops, load times, and general jankiness. I loved the game regardless, but I'm very concerned that they'll be able to pull off even that level of fidelity on the Switch. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about The Outer Worlds on Switch in the coming week as the games industry gets their hands on the final build. If the port seems technically sound, which I think is a big if, know that at Nindie Nation we wholeheartedly recommend The Outer Worlds for anyone wanting to live out their own sci-fi space fantasy. After an unusual absence last week, here I am almost excited to talk about a visual novel about scantily clad anime girls, and yet Strawberry Vinegar by Radaleka actually seems wholesome. The anime girls appear to be fully dressed and they're just baking and chit-chatting like friends. It's weird. Let's check out what the developers at Ebohimi have to say about this $10 visual novel. Sakuraba Ri, aged 9, is a cynical and grumpy girl who cares little for her fellow classmates and does not have a single friend. Oh, that's sad. That is, until a self-proclaimed demon from the deepest, darkest pits of hell suddenly appears in Ri's kitchen and steals a tray of cookies. Didn't see that one coming. What will happen between these two young girls? Will friendship blossom between them? Or perhaps something more? Yikes! She's 9!
What the hell is wrong with you people?
I take it back. I take it all back. Our next title is one of 4 rounding out the week on June 5th. This one from publisher Anteka for $5.99 is Pinball Lockdown. I swear, after these last 2 months, the last thing I want is any kind of lockdown. And from what I can see of this game, I think you could do better if pinball's what you're looking for. Check out Pinball FX or Zen Pinball. They're both free to start. And Dragius Games has been on a roll recently because this week's release of Bridge Strike looks like a cool little twist on the retro shmup genre. It's a top-down shoot-'em-up where the camera is pulled way back, giving you a lot more screen real estate to move around in. And you can tackle 2 modes, one where you just blow up as much stuff as possible, and the other consisting of various objectives to complete. There's all kinds of abilities and gadgets at your disposal, and it comes complete with a variety of level designs that have dynamic weather patterns. Not a bad showing for $6.99. Nestor Yavorsky is at it again this week. This guy just needs to release a bundle of all of his games. I'd buy it because he makes really simple, short, but addictive arcade games, and they're all really cheap. That's also the case for this week's They Came From the Sky, which launches on sale for 99 cents. You play as a UFO sucking up humans off the ground in a very retro aesthetic style themed in the 1950s, and it includes split screen for up to 4 players. I'll probably give this one a try. And finally, bringing up the rear on a shorter than usual week is a game I could have sworn already released, but maybe that's just because I've had it free on like every platform for years already. Night Squad by Chain Awesome Games, it's a good name, is a top-down party game that mixes elements of Bomberman and Gauntlet with support for up to 8 players. It includes a bunch of different modes, and I have to say this game has been the cornerstone for a couple of fun game nights, but years ago at this point. It launches at $13.49, which does feel like a bit of a Switch tax, but this is a solid title to keep on your wish list, and if you want to check it out for yourself, there's a demo available right now. And that wraps an interesting week, to say the least. Liberated is our pick of the week because of how it blends so many types of gameplay into such a cool world. But don't sleep on Outbuddies, Despotism 3K, or The Outer Worlds if it proves to run decently enough. Are any of these titles going to make their way to your Switch this week? Let me know in the YouTube comments or on Twitter at Nindie Nation. Last week, we had a month of deals finally wrap up, and that's paved the way for a ton of new deals, so strap in, because there's a little bit of everything on sale this week, and as soon as we're done with that, I'll read the winners of this past week's contest for a copy of Genetic Disaster by Dragius Games. With 466 games currently on sale, here are the Nindie Nation picks for the best deals available May 30th through June 5th. Starting with Null Drifter at 30% off for $3.49. This is a game that absolutely captivated me for like 3 evenings, and I loved every minute that I was hooked to it. You can see some footage in our most recent Nindies We Love video, but Null Drifter is a 1-bit twin-stick shooter with light roguelike elements and a soundtrack that builds dynamically from an AI, which I think is super rad. It's not a huge discount, but it is a fairly new game, and man, I just love this title, and I still go back to it quite a bit when I need a quick fix. The Bleed Complete bundle is back on sale for 85% off at only $4.19, but I've talked about this one to death recently, and it's also in our most recent Nindies We Love video. So I'll just say, if you like fast-paced action games and you haven't played these, go buy them. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Tumblestone is 90% off for $1.79 and is an excellent addition to any Switch library as a go-to falling block puzzle game, especially for multiplayer sessions. It's got a lengthy solo campaign and a bunch of different modes to keep things interesting, and I actually find myself going back to Tumblestone more often than Puyo Puyo Tetris. Another side-scrolling 2-game bundle I've mentioned a bunch recently is back on sale with the Oniken and Odalis bundle, 75% off for $5. I'll keep this one short as well. One game is Ninja Gaiden and the other is Castlevania. They're both solid, definitely worth $2.50 each, and offer a good but fair challenge for fans of the reference material. A fairly new game is getting its first significant discount, and it's definitely worth checking out as Immortal Planet is half off for only $7.49. This is a super stylish isometric action game that plays like a Souls title with a big open world that you slowly uncover, opening shortcuts along the way so that when you die, it's much quicker to get back to where you can recover everything that you lost. The gameplay is fast and kinetic with an immaculate level design, and should not be missed by fans of this style of game. Laser Kitty Pow Pow is not a very good game, but it's 16 cents and it's just an absolute acid trip of, I don't even know. It's weird, it's an arcade-like game, and I made a Let's Play of it on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure if I'm actually recommending this one, but it's only 16 cents and, it's only 16 cents. I played it for like 3 hours and I had a pretty good time. Another cheap game with a Let's Play on the Nindie Nation YouTube channel is one that I liked much more than Laser Kitty Pow Pow, and Bard's Gold is 80% off right now for $1.79 and plays just like your typical side-scrolling dungeon crawler roguelike. I never finished Bard's Gold, I didn't see it all the way through, but I did put a good 10 hours into it and I got really sucked into it for about a week. Arguably the most beautiful game on the Switch is also one of the most expensive Nindies. Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom was $40 for the longest time, and each time I see it go on sale, it drops another couple dollars in price. Now it's 55% off for $17.99, and this game is stellar. Truly, a Game of the Year contender if you like a good side-scrolling action-adventure with some Metroidvania elements. It's gorgeous on any screen, the characters are wonderful, and this game is great, you guys. The puzzles will really cook your noodle, too. And another game in a Nindies We Love video, I think from the February episode, is Horizon Chase Turbo, and it's a steal right now. 70% off for $5.99, and I think this might be the Nindie Deal Pick of the Week. Horizon Chase Turbo is a classic arcade racer like Outrun or other classic 90s racers, and it's just wonderful. Everything it does with style and flawless execution. The developers have also continued to add a ton of content, including a rookie mode that makes my daughter feel like a pro gamer, and they just added their first paid DLC after adding like 4 free packs. I highly recommend Horizon Chase Turbo, especially at $6, its lowest price yet. There aren't a ton of indie RPGs, let alone JRPGs for fans of classic Square games like Final Fantasy and so on, so you might not know that I'm actually a die-hard JRPG fanboy. I've played them all, and I played them all when they originally released too, as well as every re-release. That might be giving away my age there a bit, but if there's one type of game I know, it's JRPGs, so I do not mean this lightly when I say that Cosmic Star Heroine is the best JRPG I have played in over 20 years. It has immaculate pacing with a full playthrough clocking in at around 20 hours or so, an incredibly diverse cast of great characters with a combat system that mixes the action of Chrono Trigger with the variety of abilities from Final Fantasy VI, and the sci-fi story with a killer soundtrack is just the icing on top. Next to Chrono Trigger, Cosmic Star Heroine is my favorite JRPG ever, and right now, this sucker is $1.49. Go get it! And finally, wrapping up this week's deals is Moonlighter, another title we've discussed a lot on the podcast, with its blend of action RPG dungeon crawling, shop management, and roguelike. Wait, finally! After 2 weeks, I can finally say Moonlighter is a dungeon crawling hack and slash with procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements. Woo! Had that one pent up in me for a while. Anyways, I've gushed about Moonlighter, and it's been in past Nindies We Love videos, but it just got a huge new update that adds a bunch of end-game content, and it's now at a new lowest price ever, 60% off for only $9.99. Definitely pick up Moonlighter, and don't be scared of the shop mechanics. They're really fun, and if you end up feeling lost, just get a perfect price guide off of GameFAQs, and you'll blow right through all of the shop segments. It's funny, as I was putting this list together, I felt like I was constantly saying, oh yeah, I gotta play more Null Drifter and Cosmic Star Heroine. Man, I should really replay that again. And Horizon Chase Turbo, oh, I gotta get back to it, and so on and so on. So thanks, citizens. Now I'm gonna spend the next week playing a bunch of old Nindies I've already completed, so I consider it your fault if there's no new Let's Play videos anytime soon. You know the drill. Let me know if you're picking up any of these in the YouTube comments or on Twitter at Nindie Nation, and tag the developers of these games when you do. You'll find a lot of them will show some love in return. And I think everyone could use just a little extra positivity right now. Speaking of extra positivity, let's give away some games. After playing through, dying, swearing, and playing through more of Dragius Games' new Genetic Disaster, I asked the publisher if I could give away a couple copies, and they were happy to provide 3 of them. In Genetic Disaster, you're trying to escape from a dungeon laboratory, and throughout the game you get a handful of ridiculous mutations. Some are simple, like speeding up reload, but many of them have a double-edged sword effect. Move faster, but lose health, more ammo, but only one gun, and so forth. But they're all cleverly delivered and really funny to see. So for that reason, I asked you on Twitter, if you had to escape from the dungeon, what would be your mutation? And here are my favorite responses, all 3 of which will receive a copy of the game, and I'll DM you the code shortly. Be sure to thank Dragius, they were super cool for providing those. First up, a clever answer, but also the extra effort definitely gets a code for Jam at Jamalias. Sorry for butchering your name. Jam says Mutation, an otter porcupine. It can swim and shoot spikes. It also looks cute. And then provided a hand-drawn otter pine, which looks kind of like a cat with spikes, but no hate here, I couldn't draw that well either, so it gave me a good laugh for sure, and that's why you get a code. Next is a name and username I'm also going to totally butcher. Again, my apologies. Panchutsi Dakinana at Alejandra Dakin provided the same answer that my daughter probably would. A cat with unicorn wings. And hey, can't go wrong with unicorns, and I love cats, so I'm definitely adding you to the list. And my favorite, from Holy Headshot at Holy Headshot, he wins because as I read it, I was just nodding thinking, yeah, that totally works. He said, Mutation for survival, part spitting cobra, part armadillo, tough shell for defense, deadly ranged poison attacks, like a tanky ranger. And that is the response of someone who's played a lot of video games. Congrats and enjoy the game, everyone. Maybe add me on Switch. I think my friend code is in my Twitter bio, and we could all play online one night. That'd be fun. Thanks to everyone who entered, and thanks to Dragius for providing the codes. I like that. Let me know if you want to see more of these. And with that, citizens, we're rounding the corner and headed home for this week's episode. We were a bit light on new releases this week, but that just provided some extra time to gush about a few of the games that I love in this new wave of deals. As I look at the upcoming Nindies, there are so many exciting games that are still slated for a spring or summer release. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and stick around as we keep diving into every week's new Nindies. This podcast posts every Sunday evening to podcast feeds and every Monday on YouTube, complete with footage of every game covered. The Nindie Nation YouTube channel also has 2 series worth checking out. Let's Play Nindies contains long-form first gameplay sessions if you want to try out a game along with me, as well as shorter review-style Let's Plays, and then there's the Nindies We Love series, which focuses on a handful of games that are currently keeping our Joy-Cons synced. Please check them out, like, share, comment, and all that stuff. For everything else Nintendo related, go check out the wonderful folks at the Nintendo Village who are cranking out daily news and feature articles, reviews and previews, excellent videos, and other weekly podcasts like Nintendo Nostalgia and P-Myth Gaming. If it's Nintendo, they've got you covered, and it can all be found at thenintendovillage.com. Nindie Nation is hosted by the Nintendo Village, and we are eternally grateful for their support. Okay, we cover everything? Neglected Nindies, new releases, deals, spammed the Twitter and YouTube stuff, gave out some games. Yeah, that does it for this week. I'm gonna go back to playing some games for the next Nindies We Love video. I'm really excited for this one, so stay tuned. But that, however, is for another time. For now, I'm Jeff, and this has been Nindie Nation episode 67. Thank you so much for your time, and especially for your interaction in any form. I love talking with all of you about the games and the content, and your feedback helps me make Nindie Nation better, so keep it coming. I'll see you right back here next week for another rousing lineup of brand new Nindies, so no matter what kind of game you're looking for or how much you're able to shell out for a new game, we'll be right here to help you find just the game to keep your Joy-Cons synced.